For a long time, Jones's skills were the best in the business. He was widely recognized as the fighter of the decade in the 1990s.
A sensational barrage on left hook.
That was the most physically talented fighter to come along in my lifetime. He was impossible to hit. He had sudden power in both hands.
It made you want to watch Roy Jones fight again, even if you'd never watched boxing before. He was that spectacular. He was that explosive because he had superlative speed, hand-eye coordination, and reflexes.
His almost incomparable natural physical gifts gave him the right to fight as a genius artiste. He was the paradigm of the kind of fighter who rises in our current era to #1 on the pound-for-pound list.
He won world titles in 4 weight classes, including an historic victory over John Ruiz in 2003. The first time in the modern era, a former middleweight champion had won a heavyweight title belt.
It had been a fantastic achievement. It was absolutely, the apex of his.
When you're born with a name like Guglielmo Papaleo, you better be tough. And so it was for one of the greatest pound-for-pounders in boxing history, who, when he finished fighting after a 26-year career, won 229 fights and lost only 11. As an amateur, Pep lost only 3 of his 70 fights, with one of those 3 losses coming against another young amateur named Sugar Ray Robinson. Pep turned pro in July of 1940, and in 29 months fought 54 times, winning them all. In his 55th bout, he won the World Featherweight Championship against Albert Chalky Wright. Boxing historian Hank Kaplan described Pep as one of the sport's greatest, with sensational boxing skills, possessing educated feet, the ability to spin fighters, bob and weave, slip punches, and having just phenomenal speed. In his 1946 fight against Jackie Graves, the Will of the Wisp, a name given to him because his style of boxing resembled a tap dancer with gloves on, he told ringside reporters to take notice of him in the 3rd round. He did not throw a single punch during the entire 3 minutes, yet won that round on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards because of his spectacular footwork and defensive skills.
You talk about desire. You talk about doing anything to win. That was Rocky Marciano.
Tough as a rock. He was very well named. He would wear you down. It was like going up against granite.
Marciano trained like an old-time bare-knuckle fighter. He had the endurance to go 20 rounds. He could knock you out in the 20th round.
Marciano's the only fighter that's probably overrated and underrated at the same time. Some people overrate him because he was undefeated, and other guys will underrate him because he fought a lot of these great fighters at a later time in their life.
One of the most important ways to measure a fighter's worth is how he came back from a defeat. Marciano didn't have that. Being perfect, he never had a chance to avenge a defeat. With him, it was what he did during his fights. He was behind against Charles. He was behind against Walcott. He came back to beat these guys.
He was an engine. He was a person who devoted his life to his dream, to his cause.
He typified the many great Italian boxers of his day, the sons of immigrants who only knew how to march ahead in a straight line to get to where they were going.
I see his legacy as a fighter as a man of indomitable courage. Rocky Marciano showed what the will to win can do.
Now using his trainer's last name, Armstrong, the world would see that defense meant nothing to this featherweight, dubbed Perpetual Motion. Boxing historian Hank Kaplan.
He never stopped throwing punches, from the opening bell to the final bell. All he would do is look down at his opponent's feet, follow his feet, and somehow, by some instinct, would be able to tell when his opponent was throwing a punch and use the proper defensive action against that punch.
He wins his 2nd championship by leapfrogging over the lightweight title to win the welterweight title from Barney Ross. He now drops back to 135 to fight for the lightweight title against Lou Ambrose. And it's a brutal fight. He winds up swallowing his own blood for the last 6 rounds so the referee won't stop the fight, and he wins his 3rd title and is holding all 3 at one time.
In just 10 months, he became the first and last fighter to simultaneously hold titles in 3 weight classes. There were only 8 divisions at the time, and Armstrong owned almost half.
Ezzard Charles was one of the great fighters and the most unappreciated fighter of all time. And he was, I think, symptomatic of the whole essence of boxing. As a middleweight, almost all winning. As a light heavyweight, better if possible. He couldn't get a shot at anyone.
By the time he was 20, Charles had beaten Charlie Burley twice. He later defeated Archie Moore, and then against the ever-dangerous Lloyd Marshall, he went down in the second round and came back to win. Having moved up to the heavyweight ranks, Charles beat the top challengers in the division, including Jersey Joe Walcott, and by all accounts was the new heavyweight champion. But Charles wasn't fully appreciated until 1950, when he defeated a recently unretired Joe Louis for the undisputed heavyweight title.
The fight's gone all the way, and an era ends as the bell sounds.
For the first time in boxing history, the heavyweight title passed from one black man to another black man.
So what? And since I won the championship, I feel very proud about it, and I'll try and do my best to keep it as clean as the previous fellow who just stepped down, Joe Louis. I'll try to be as much of a credit to it as he was.
With Blackburn in his corner, Louis turned pro in 1934 and quickly became a contender. His first fight, a one-round knockout of Jack Kraken, was followed by 17 more wins in less than a year. In 1937, he beat James Braddock to become the first black heavyweight champion since Jack Johnson, 22 years earlier. Like Johnson, Louis rarely faced black challengers.
Joe Louis defended his title 25 times. Only twice did he defend against black men. John Henry Lewis in his first defense, and Jersey Joe Walcott. The rest of his challengers were white.
If Joe Louis had spoken out against racism, no one would have listened, and he would not have gotten the chance to win over white America. He was, just by standing up, just by getting in the ring with white fighters, Louis was the most militant black man in the world.
To me, Archie Moore's life is like a blues song. Whenever I see films of him, I think of Robert Johnson, the great black Mississippi blues singer. That's the kind of feeling you get when you look at the whole career of Archie Moore and the discrimination he suffered, the lack of recognition. He was everything you want from a fighter, a boxer, a puncher, crafty, quick, a great interview. He's like a lost treasure to me.
Archie Moore's career symbolized the struggle of African-American fighters. Boxing in the shadows of whites, some became champions, others were denied. All of them helped pave the way for blacks seeking equality inside and outside the ring.
Floyd Mayweather Jr. knows he's special. He's the best pound-for-pound boxer in the sport, undefeated. He walks through life with a wink and a smile, a cross-cultural icon who dominates and agitates with an almost unnatural air of self-confidence.
Hey, listen to me. Mayweather's a fighter. He's a great fighter. He doesn't think about losing. You see a guy who is a perfectionist, a guy with heart, a guy with bravado, a guy with personality. He's one of the best.
I hear a lot of talk about old-time great fighters. I hear people say that Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Jim Jeffries, and all of them would have annihilated the likes of myself, Muhammad Ali. After watching these films, watching their opponents, watching their styles, watching how they fought, watching their footwork and their speed, and my critics will admit that I am the fastest heavyweight in the history of boxing with feet and hands. It may come as a shock to you, but I say that I would have beat every heavyweight that ever lived before me.
To be a champion is to convert obstacles into stepping stones. It is possible to strip a man of a title, but in a more important sense, champion means a set of qualities. rather than an official title.
You know, all of the youth are watching you, and all of them look up to you and idolize you.
A champion is a species of hero, and a hero is nourished by misfortune. That is why he attracts legend. Let us hope, then, that no action of Defense Department or federal judiciary or Muslim factionalism can quench these qualities that make Ali a champion. He is more than a champion. He is a man.
Sugar Ray Robinson was the most faultless fighter ever. Period. End of paragraph.
No man can endure this pummeling.
I never saw a man other than Ray Robinson throw a knockout punch going backwards. Can you imagine the leverage? He was Beethoven, he was Bach, he was T.S. Eliot, he was everything.
Robinson didn't make a fight, he gave a recital. And these performances stretched over 25 years. Years of drama, of losing and reclaiming titles. A total of 6 world championships by the end. And the integrity evident as he boxed was not separate from the man. Wary, proud, he often defied the white boxing establishment.
If I can regain the middleweight championship for the 6th time, I most certainly will then say it's been a very wonderful career, and thank God and all the wonderful people who've prayed for my success.
But there would be no more titles. On November 10, 1965, at age 44, he lost a decision to Joey Archer. The show had gone on too long. Finally, the curtain dropped. Madison Square Garden. 1 month after his final bout, thousands recalled the way it had been, with a tribute to a native son. At long last, Sugar Ray took a final bow. Bert Sugar.
One time at the old garden, I overheard a father and son talking. The father was pointing at the garden marquee and telling his son, "That's the greatest." And one day the father said, "You're going to be able to tell your son that you saw the greatest. You saw Sugar Ray Robinson."
I went to Peck Elementary, lesson Jacody.